The Quran contains a mathematical code so precise that it defied discovery for over 1,400 years. Hidden patterns are woven into every verse, every letter, and every word that modern computers can barely comprehend. What you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about this ancient text. Some of these secrets have been guarded by scholars for centuries, while others have only been revealed through cutting-edge technology. From numerical miracles to scientific prophecies, from linguistic impossibilities to historical mysteries, prepare to witness revelations that will leave you questioning the very nature of knowledge itself. If you're ready to explore these mind-blowing secrets, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you never miss content like this. And please let me know in the comments where you're watching this video from right now. I love seeing our global community come together. Let's dive into the unknown. The Quran was revealed over 23 years, yet it maintains perfect consistency across 114 chapters. Despite addressing hundreds of topics from law to cosmology, no contradiction exists within its pages, a feat impossible for any human author writing over 2 decades while facing war, persecution, and constant life upheaval. Modern scholars have analyzed its text using computational linguistics and found a coherence level that surpasses any other ancient or modern text. The number 19 appears throughout the Quran in ways that defy probability. The opening statement, Bismillah, contains exactly 19 letters in Arabic. The Quran has 114 chapters. That's 19 times 6. The first revelation contains 19 words, and the last revelation contains 19 words. This number appears in the structure of chapters, verses, and even the numerical values of specific words throughout the text. Mathematicians have calculated the odds of these patterns occurring randomly, and the numbers are astronomical. We're talking about probabilities in the trillions to 1. Every chapter in the Quran begins with Bismillah, except one, chapter 9. But here's where it gets mysterious. Exactly 19 chapters later, in chapter 27, Bismillah appears twice in the text, compensating for the missing one. The distance is precise, the placement deliberate, and the mathematical harmony perfect. Ancient scribes had no calculators, no computers, yet this pattern was embedded into the text from the very beginning. The Quran mentions the creation of the heavens and earth in 6 days, but it uses a specific Arabic word, yom, which can mean a day or a period of time. Modern cosmology confirms that the universe evolved over 6 major epochs: the formation of the universe, the creation of galaxies, the birth of stars, the formation of our solar system, the cooling of Earth, and the emergence of life. This correlation between ancient text and modern science has left physicists stunned. In chapter 21, verse 30, the Quran states that the heavens and earth were joined together as one mass before being split apart. This is a direct reference to the Big Bang theory, described 1,400 years before scientists discovered cosmic expansion. The verse uses the Arabic word ratkan, meaning a closed or sewn entity, and fatakna, meaning we opened or split, the exact terminology modern physics would use to describe the universe's origin. The Quran describes the development of the human embryo in stages that perfectly match modern embryology. It mentions a clinging clot, which corresponds to the blastocyst attaching to the uterine wall. It describes the formation of bones before flesh, which scientists confirmed only after advanced imaging technology revealed the precise sequence of fetal development. Professor Keith Moore, one of the world's leading embryologists, examined these verses and stated they could not have been known in the 7th century without divine revelation. The Quran contains a unique challenge that has never been met in 1,400 years. Produce even one chapter like it. Countless poets, linguists, and writers throughout history have attempted this challenge and failed. The Arabic language has a specific rhythm, eloquence, and depth in the Quran that remains unmatched. Even during the time of its revelation, the Arabs were masters of poetry and language, yet they could not replicate even the shortest chapter. The word man appears 24 times in the Quran, and the word woman appears 24 times. The word angels and the word devils both appear 88 times each. The words this world and the hereafter each appear 115 times. Muhammad is mentioned 4 times explicitly, and Sharia, Islamic law, is mentioned 4 times. These linguistic balances were discovered only through modern computational analysis, yet they were present in the text from day one. The Quran describes the ocean floor having internal waves beneath surface waves, a phenomenon discovered only with submarine technology in the 20th century. In chapter 24, it mentions darkness in deep seas with waves above waves and clouds above them, creating layers of darkness. Oceanographers confirm that light cannot penetrate beyond 1,000 meters in the ocean, creating complete darkness, and that internal waves exist beneath surface waves exactly as described. Mountains are described in the Quran as having roots deep in the earth, like stakes or pegs. Modern geology reveals that mountains have deep crustal roots extending into the mantle, sometimes reaching depths several times their visible height. This knowledge was completely unknown to 7th century Arabia, where people believed mountains were simply elevated land masses sitting on the surface. The Quran mentions that iron was sent down from the heavens rather than formed on earth. Modern astrophysics confirms that iron cannot be formed on Earth. It requires the intense nuclear fusion of dying stars. All iron on our planet came from ancient supernova explosions in space, literally sent down from the cosmos. The chapter on iron, Al-Hadid, is the 57th chapter, and the atomic number of iron is 26. When you add the chapter number, 57, and the atomic weight, 56, you get remarkable numerical patterns that scholars continue to study. The Quran describes the sun as having its own orbit and moving through space, not stationary as ancient civilizations believed. Modern astronomy confirms the sun orbits around the center of the Milky Way galaxy, completing one revolution every 225 million years at a speed of 720,000 kilometers per hour. This concept was revolutionary for its time and contradicted the scientific consensus of the era. Fingerprints are mentioned in the Quran as something unique that God can reassemble after death. In chapter 75, verse 4, it specifically mentions the ability to restore fingertips precisely. This was revealed centuries before the discovery that every human has unique fingerprints, a fact that became the foundation of modern forensic science only in the 19th century. The Quran mentions the protective nature of the sky, describing it as a protected ceiling. Modern science reveals that the atmosphere protects Earth from harmful cosmic radiation, meteors, and extreme temperature fluctuations. The magnetosphere shields us from solar winds, and the ozone layer blocks ultraviolet radiation, multiple layers of protection that make life possible, exactly as the ancient text described. Clouds are described in the Quran with scientific accuracy regarding their formation and rain production. Chapter 24, verse 43, describes how clouds are piled up, creating hail from mountains within them. A precise description of cumulonimbus cloud formation that wasn't understood until meteorological research in the 20th century revealed how these massive cloud systems produce hail through updrafts and ice crystal formation. The Quran mentions that all living things are made from water, stating in chapter 21, verse 30, that we made every living thing from water. Biochemistry confirms that water is the primary component of cells and the medium for all biological reactions. Life as we know it cannot exist without water, a fact that seemed obvious after scientific discovery, but was revolutionary knowledge in a desert environment 1,400 years ago. The expansion of the universe is explicitly mentioned in chapter 51, verse 47, where it states, "And the heaven we constructed with strength, and indeed we are its expander." This concept remained unknown to humanity until Edwin Hubble's observations in 1929 proved the universe is continuously expanding. The Arabic word musi'una means expanding in the present continuous tense, indicating an ongoing process. The Quran describes the pain receptors in human skin, stating in chapter 4, verse 56, that when skin is burned and destroyed, it will be replaced so punishment can continue, implying that pain is felt through the skin. Modern medicine discovered pain receptors, nociceptors, only in the 19th century, confirming that pain sensation occurs primarily in the skin's nerve endings. Deeper burns that destroy these receptors actually feel less pain, exactly supporting the Quranic description. Honey is mentioned in the Quran as a healing substance produced by bees that follow a divinely inspired path. Modern research confirms honey's antibacterial, antifungal, and healing properties. It contains hydrogen peroxide, antioxidants, and compounds that promote wound healing and tissue regeneration. Medical institutions now use honey in advanced wound care, validating a therapeutic claim made 14 centuries ago. The Quran mentions the barrier between sweet and saltwater bodies, describing how they meet but don't mix, with a partition between them. Oceanography reveals the phenomenon of haloclines, boundaries where waters of different salinity meet but maintain distinct characteristics due to density differences. This occurs in estuaries where rivers meet oceans, creating invisible barriers that can extend for kilometers. The Quran describes the night as covering or enveloping the day, using terminology that suggests Earth's rotation. The Arabic word yukawir, used in chapter 39, verse 5, means to coil or wind around like a turban, a description that perfectly illustrates Earth rotating on its axis, causing the continuous transition between day and night. Ancient civilizations believed Earth was stationary with the sun moving around it. The story of Pharaoh's body being preserved is mentioned in the Quran, stating that his corpse would be saved as a sign for future generations. In 1898, the mummy of Ramesses II was discovered in the Valley of the Kings, perfectly preserved. Modern forensic analysis revealed this mummy drowned, consistent with the Quranic account of Pharaoh drowning while pursuing Moses across the Red Sea. This physical evidence emerged only after archaeological excavations in the late 19th century. The Quran mentions that everything exists in pairs, from plants to humans to things unknown. Modern physics discovered antimatter, the opposite pair of regular matter, where every particle has an antiparticle with opposite properties. Even in subatomic physics, pairing is fundamental to the universe's structure, from electron-positron pairs to matter-antimatter symmetry. The lowest point on Earth's land surface is mentioned in the Quran regarding the Roman defeat by the Persians. The text states this occurred in the lowest land, and the Romans would be victorious again within a few years. Both prophecies came true. The Romans won at the Battle of Issus, and geological surveys confirm the region around the Dead Sea, where this battle occurred, is the lowest elevation on Earth at 430 meters below sea level. The Quran contains a mathematical structure where certain chapters mirror each other in length, theme, and word count. Chapter 1 and Chapter 114 form bookends, while chapters throughout the text demonstrate symmetrical relationships. Computer analysis revealed that the placement and length of chapters follow patterns that couldn't have been deliberately designed by humans without modern computational tools. The concept of time relativity is hinted at in the Quran, stating that a day with God can be like 1,000 years of human reckoning, or even 50,000 years. Einstein's theory of relativity proved that time is not absolute. It varies based on gravitational fields and velocity. Time dilation near massive objects or at high speeds means time literally passes differently, making the Quranic verses scientifically accurate descriptions of space-time fabric. The Quran describes the formation of milk in animals, stating it comes from between digested food and blood. Modern physiology confirms that milk production involves nutrients absorbed from digested food in the intestines, transported through the bloodstream to mammary glands. The description "between" is physiologically accurate. Milk components literally come from substances processed between the digestive system and circulatory system. Ants are described in the Quran as having complex communication systems. In chapter 27, an ant warns others about approaching danger in what the text presents as intelligent communication. Entomology has discovered that ants possess sophisticated chemical and tactile communication systems, use pheromones to convey complex messages, organize colonies with remarkable efficiency, and demonstrate problem-solving abilities that rival many larger creatures. The Quran mentions that God created humans from clay. Modern biochemistry reveals that the essential elements composing the human body, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus, are the same elements found abundantly in clay and soil. We are literally made from Earth's elements, organized into complex organic molecules through billions of years of evolution. The mention of spiders' webs as among the weakest structures appears in the Quran with a deeper meaning. Beyond the physical weakness, recent research discovered that spider silk, while incredibly strong for its weight, becomes vulnerable when its geometric structure is compromised. The verse uses the metaphor for false beliefs, structurally impressive but fundamentally weak, just like elaborate spider webs that collapse under real pressure. The Quran describes winds as pollinators, scattering pollen and enabling plant reproduction. This ecological process, essential for plant biodiversity and food production, wasn't fully understood until modern botany revealed the crucial role of wind in cross-pollination, transferring genetic material between plants and maintaining ecosystem health. Frontal lobe function is referenced in the Quran when describing a lying, sinful person, mentioning the lying, sinful forelock. Neuroscience has discovered that the prefrontal cortex, located in the forehead area, is responsible for decision-making, moral judgment, and truth-telling. This brain region, when damaged, can lead to impaired moral reasoning and increased dishonest behavior, validating the ancient text's anatomical behavioral connection. The Quran mentions that the universe was smoke before being formed into organized matter. Modern cosmology describes the early universe as a hot, opaque plasma, a gaseous, smoky state before cooling allowed matter to condense into stars and galaxies. The Arabic word dukhan means smoke, perfectly describing the cosmic fog that preceded stellar formation. Lightning and thunder are mentioned in the Quran as signs, and modern meteorology has revealed the complex relationship between these phenomena. Lightning generates thunder through rapid air expansion from extreme heat up to 30,000 Kelvin. The Quran presents these natural events as methodical processes rather than chaotic occurrences, which aligns with our understanding of atmospheric electricity and weather systems. The Quran states that everything in the universe glorifies God, including stars and planets, though we don't understand their language. Modern astrophysics discovered that celestial bodies emit radiation across the electromagnetic spectrum, radio waves, X-rays, gamma rays, creating a cosmic symphony we can detect but in frequencies beyond human hearing. Pulsars create rhythmic signals, planets produce radio emissions, and stars generate acoustic waves. The number 7 appears throughout the Quran with special significance. 7 heavens, 7 earths, 7 layers of atmosphere. Modern atmospheric science divides Earth's atmosphere into 7 distinct layers: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, ionosphere, exosphere, and magnetosphere. Each layer has unique characteristics and functions, protecting life and enabling various natural phenomena. The Quran describes the orbits of celestial bodies as precise and without collision, stating that the sun and moon swim in their respective orbits. The Arabic word yasbahun means to swim, suggesting movement through a medium. Modern physics confirms that space isn't empty vacuum, but filled with quantum fields, dark matter, and dark energy. Celestial bodies literally move through this cosmic medium in precisely calculated orbits governed by gravity and space-time curvature. The concept of individual accountability is repeated throughout the Quran, stating that no soul bears the burden of another. This principle, revolutionary for its time, established personal responsibility and rejected tribal guilt, ideas that became foundational to modern legal systems and human rights concepts only centuries later. The Quran mentions that God created death and life to test humanity, positioning death before life. From a cosmological perspective, the universe began in a state of maximum entropy, death, disorder, before complexity and life emerged. Thermodynamically, death represents the natural state, while life is the temporary organization of matter against entropy's flow. Black holes are subtly referenced in the Quran through descriptions of objects that consume everything and cannot be seen. Chapter 81 mentions stars that run their course and hide, using the Arabic word kunus, referring to something that sweeps and conceals. Black holes, discovered theoretically by Einstein and confirmed observationally in the 20th century, are massive objects whose gravity prevents even light from escaping, making them invisible yet consuming everything nearby. The Quran describes different types of darkness: darkness in the sea, darkness of clouds, layers upon layers. This corresponds to modern understanding of light absorption. Water absorbs red light first, then orange, yellow, and finally blue, creating progressive darkness with depth. Combined with cloud cover blocking sunlight, multiple darkness layers exist simultaneously, exactly as described. The preservation of the Quran is mentioned within its own text, stating that God will protect it from corruption. Unlike other ancient scriptures that exist in multiple conflicting versions, the Quran has been preserved with remarkable consistency. Manuscripts from different centuries and regions show identical text, and the oral tradition, where millions have memorized the entire text, serves as continuous verification against textual corruption. The Quran mentions that humans were created from nutfah, often translated as a drop of fluid, but more precisely meaning mixed fluids. Human reproduction involves the mixing of male semen, containing millions of sperm in seminal fluid, with female secretions and the ovum. This biological accuracy was unknown in ancient times when reproduction mechanisms remained mysterious. Chapter 55 of the Quran, Ar-Rahman, contains the verse, "Which of the favors of your Lord will you deny?" repeated exactly 31 times throughout the chapter. This creates a rhythmic pattern that's hypnotic when recited, reinforcing the message through repetition, a sophisticated rhetorical device that emphasizes gratitude while maintaining poetic structure. The Quran describes sensory deprivation as a form of spiritual deafness, blindness, and sealed hearts, referring not to physical disabilities but to psychological states. Modern psychology confirms that cognitive biases, confirmation bias, and motivated reasoning can literally prevent people from processing information that contradicts their beliefs, creating perceptual barriers as real as physical ones. Different metals are mentioned in the Quran: iron, copper, gold, silver, each with specific properties and uses. The text accurately associates iron with strength, gold and silver with wealth and beauty, and copper with usefulness. Metallurgy confirms these associations. Iron has the highest tensile strength among common metals. Gold and silver are noble metals, resistant to corrosion, and copper's electrical conductivity makes it invaluable. The Quran mentions that some mountains are white, red, and black, colors that seem unusual for typical rock formations. However, geological surveys reveal mountains with exactly these colors worldwide: white limestone mountains, red sandstone formations, and black volcanic mountains. The diversity of mountain colors depends on mineral composition, oxidation states, and rock types, facts requiring extensive travel or geological knowledge to observe. Atmospheric pressure and oxygen deprivation at high altitudes are described in the Quran, stating that as one ascends higher into the sky, their chest becomes constricted and breathing becomes difficult. This perfectly describes hypoxia, the condition caused by reduced oxygen availability at high elevations. Without modern understanding of atmospheric pressure gradients and oxygen partial pressures, this observation would be impossible to articulate accurately. The Quran mentions that God created everything in due proportion and measure, including the precise amount of water on Earth. Planetary science reveals that Earth's water volume, approximately 1.4 billion cubic kilometers, is precisely calibrated for life. Too much water would cover all land, preventing terrestrial life, while too little would create uninhabitable desert conditions. This precise balance exists nowhere else in our solar system. The mention of pairs in creation extends beyond simple male-female distinctions to include the concept of charge pairs in physics, positive and negative charges that govern electromagnetic forces. All electrical phenomena depend on these pairs, from atomic structure to chemical bonds to the neural signals in our brains. This fundamental duality permeates reality at every level. The Quran describes how rain revives dead land, and the process described matches the ecological succession observed in modern environmental science. Dormant seeds can remain viable for years, then germinate rapidly when water becomes available. The text mentions that land appears dead, then suddenly produces vegetation, precisely describing how desert ecosystems respond to rainfall through seed banks in the soil. Sound waves and their propagation are referenced in descriptions of heavenly phenomena. The Quran mentions that when the trumpet is blown, a sound will travel, causing massive effects. Modern physics knows that sound waves carry energy and can cause physical effects, from breaking glass to generating heat. In space, extremely powerful sound waves could theoretically affect matter on cosmic scales. The diversity of human languages and colors is mentioned as a sign for those who reflect. Linguistics and genetics confirm that language diversity arose through geographic isolation and cultural evolution, while skin color variations evolved as adaptations to different UV radiation levels at various latitudes, both reflecting humanity's adaptive capacity and common origin. The Quran mentions that stars serve as navigation guides and decorations in the sky. For millennia, humans used stellar navigation, reading star positions to traverse oceans and deserts. GPS satellites today continue this tradition. Our modern navigation still depends on celestial mechanics, albeit through artificial stars we placed in orbit ourselves. The protection of bees and their structured communities are referenced in the Quran, which describes how female bees are directed to build cells and produce honey. Entomology confirms that worker bees, all female, construct hexagonal honeycombs with mathematical precision, maximizing space efficiency. The hexagonal structure is the most efficient way to divide space into equal cells while minimizing wall material, a geometry solution bees discovered through evolution. Gender determination is subtly referenced in verses about creation, mentioning how humans are created from a fluid drop that then becomes either male or female. Modern genetics reveals that sex determination occurs at conception when sperm carrying either X or Y chromosomes fertilizes the egg. The male contribution determines gender, which contradicts ancient beliefs that blamed women for bearing only girls or only boys. The Quran describes how disbelievers' hearts are sealed, creating multiple layers of barriers against truth. Neuroscience reveals that repeated thought patterns literally rewire neural pathways, strengthening certain connections while weakening others. Confirmation bias becomes physically embedded in brain structure through neuroplasticity. Beliefs literally shape the architecture of consciousness. Earthquakes are mentioned in the Quran as signs of God's power, described with terminology suggesting subterranean forces. Geology confirms that earthquakes result from tectonic plate movements deep within Earth's crust, releasing accumulated stress through seismic waves. The violent shaking, ground rupture, and unpredictable nature of earthquakes demonstrate forces vastly beyond human control. The concept of multiple dimensions or realms is implied in Quranic verses describing different levels of existence: the material world, the barzakh, intermediate realm, and the hereafter. Modern physics, through string theory and quantum mechanics, proposes additional dimensions beyond the four we experience. These mathematical dimensions, though imperceptible, are necessary for physics equations to work, and may represent actual aspects of reality we cannot directly observe. The Quran warns against intoxicants, describing how they impair judgment and create enmity. Neuroscience confirms that alcohol and drugs disrupt neurotransmitter function, particularly affecting the prefrontal cortex responsible for executive function, decision-making, and impulse control. Chronic use physically alters brain chemistry, leading to addiction and cognitive impairment, validating the ancient prohibition through modern medical evidence. Fire is described in the Quran as coming from green trees, seemingly paradoxical since green vegetation is wet and fire-resistant. However, ancient peoples discovered that friction between green wood branches can generate heat through mechanical energy conversion. Moreover, all wood contains stored solar energy from photosynthesis. Green plants literally trap fire energy from the sun, releasing it when burned. The description of hell in the Quran includes specific details about heat levels that cause skin to burn and regenerate continuously. This matches what modern burn medicine knows about third-degree burns that destroy nerve endings, reducing pain, versus second-degree burns that repeatedly expose pain receptors. The constant renewal of skin ensures continuous sensation, a medically accurate description of sustained thermal trauma. The Quran mentions camels and their creation as signs to reflect upon, particularly their ability to survive extreme desert conditions. Camel physiology is remarkably adapted. They can drink 100 liters in minutes. Their blood cells are oval to prevent rupturing from rapid hydration. They tolerate 25% body water loss. Humans die at 15%. Their body temperature fluctuates to conserve water, and they extract moisture from food with 95% efficiency. Each adaptation represents sophisticated biological engineering. Night and day are described as signs, with night being a time of rest and day for seeking provisions. Chronobiology confirms that circadian rhythms, controlled by the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain, synchronize human biological functions to the day-night cycle. Melatonin production, body temperature, hormone levels, and cognitive performance all fluctuate on roughly 24-hour cycles, matching Earth's rotation. The Quran states that everything has been created in pairs, even things humans don't know about. This extends to antimatter, wave-particle duality in quantum mechanics, matter-energy equivalence, and countless other binary relationships in physics and mathematics. From binary code running computers to DNA base pairing enabling genetics, pairs form the foundation of information systems throughout nature. Patience and its psychological benefits are emphasized throughout the Quran. Modern psychology validates this through research on delayed gratification, emotional regulation, and stress resilience. Studies like the famous marshmallow experiment demonstrate that patience correlates with better life outcomes, improved decision-making, and enhanced mental health. Patience isn't just moral virtue, but psychological necessity for well-being. The Quran describes how disbelievers will claim they only lived on earth for a day or an hour when confronted with eternity. This perfectly captures how memory distorts time perception. As people age, years seem to accelerate because new experiences decrease and routine increases. When facing vast timescales, human lifespans genuinely feel infinitesimally brief, making the metaphor psychologically accurate. Dreams and their significance are mentioned in the Quran through multiple prophetic stories where dreams convey true information. Neuroscience has discovered that during REM sleep, the brain processes memories, consolidates learning, and generates simulations that help problem-solving. Some dreams demonstrate precognitive elements that researchers still can't fully explain, suggesting consciousness operates beyond simple waking awareness. The importance of moderation in all aspects of life is repeatedly emphasized in the Quran, neither extravagant nor miserly, neither excessive nor deficient. Modern medicine, psychology, and economics all validate the principle of moderation. Balanced diets prevent disease, moderate exercise optimizes health, balanced emotions promote mental well-being, and moderate spending ensures financial stability. Extremes in any direction typically produce negative outcomes. The Quran mentions that on Judgment Day, body parts will testify about actions committed. Modern forensic science uses biological evidence, DNA from skin cells, fingerprints, blood spatter patterns, hair follicles, to reconstruct events. Our bodies literally record our actions through cellular changes, scarring, telomere shortening, and epigenetic modifications that persist as physical testimony of lived experiences. Charity and its psychological benefits are emphasized in the Quran, stating that giving to others purifies the giver. Neuroscience research reveals that altruistic behavior activates reward centers in the brain, releasing dopamine and oxytocin that produce genuine happiness. Studies show that people who give regularly report higher life satisfaction, reduced depression, and improved overall well-being. Generosity literally benefits the giver as much as the receiver. The Quran describes angels as created from light, jinn from smokeless fire, and humans from clay. This differentiation suggests distinct forms of existence. Light representing pure energy, electromagnetic radiation; smokeless fire suggesting plasma or energetic matter; and clay representing organized physical matter. These descriptions parallel modern physics' understanding of energy and matter existing in different states and forms. The importance of seeking knowledge is emphasized throughout the Quran, which begins with the command, "Read." Neuroscience confirms that learning physically changes brain structure through neuroplasticity, forming new neural connections and strengthening existing ones. Continuous learning throughout life correlates with reduced cognitive decline, enhanced problem-solving abilities, and improved quality of life. The Quran mentions that God created humans in the best form or stature. Compared to other species, humans possess unique advantages. Bipedalism frees our hands for tool use. Opposable thumbs enable precise manipulation. Large brains relative to body size provide cognitive capacity. Vocal tract anatomy enables complex language. And prolonged childhood allows extended learning. These features collectively make humans remarkably capable organisms. Historical prophecies in the Quran include specific predictions that came true years or decades after being revealed. The Romans' victory over Persians within a specified time frame, the preservation of Pharaoh's body, the protection of Mecca from invaders, and Muhammad's return to his hometown. All were documented before occurring and subsequently fulfilled, providing historical evidence for the text's claims of divine origin. The Quran describes paradise with rivers of water, milk, honey, and wine that doesn't intoxicate, each representing different forms of pure sustenance and pleasure. Psychologically, these represent fundamental human desires: water for survival, milk for nurturing and growth, honey for natural sweetness and healing, and wine for celebration without negative consequences. The descriptions tap into universal human longing for perfection and satisfaction. Social justice and equality are central themes in the Quran, explicitly stating that no race or ethnicity is superior to another. Only righteousness matters. This message, delivered in 7th century Arabia, where tribal superiority was assumed, revolutionized social structure and challenged existing hierarchies. The principle remains foundational to modern human rights concepts and equality movements worldwide. Orphans and their protection receive special emphasis in the Quran, with numerous verses commanding their fair treatment and prohibiting exploitation. Developmental psychology confirms that children who lose parents face increased risk of trauma, poverty, and exploitation. The Quran's protective legislation for orphans, property rights, inheritance, and guardianship rules provided systematic safeguards centuries before modern child welfare systems existed. The Quran describes consultation and mutual decision-making as virtuous practices for leadership and governance. Modern research on organizational management, political science, and psychology validates that collaborative decision-making produces better outcomes than autocratic leadership. Group intelligence, diverse perspectives, and stakeholder buy-in all improve through consultative processes, making ancient wisdom applicable to contemporary governance. Environmental stewardship is commanded in the Quran, which forbids waste and destruction of natural resources. Ecology confirms that sustainable resource use, biodiversity protection, and ecosystem preservation are essential for human survival. The ancient prohibition against environmental destruction aligns with modern conservation biology's findings that ecological degradation threatens civilization itself. Women's rights to education, property ownership, inheritance, and consent in marriage are explicitly established in the Quran. These rights, granted in 7th century Arabia, preceded similar legal recognitions in Western societies by centuries. Women in some European countries couldn't own property independently or control inheritance until the 19th or early 20th centuries, making the Quran legally progressive for its historical context. The Quran warns that excessive wealth accumulation without social responsibility leads to moral corruption. Economic research demonstrates that extreme inequality correlates with social instability, reduced social mobility, increased crime rates, and diminished overall well-being, even for the wealthy. Systems requiring wealth redistribution through charity create more stable, prosperous societies than those allowing unlimited accumulation. Dietary laws in the Quran prohibit consuming blood, carrion, and certain meats for health reasons. Modern science validates blood carries pathogens and toxins, making it unsafe for consumption. Carrion decomposes rapidly, harboring dangerous bacteria. Prohibited animals often carry diseases transmissible to humans: trichinosis from improperly prepared pork, toxoplasmosis, and other zoonotic diseases. These dietary restrictions served as public health measures before germ theory existed. The concept of witnessing and testimony is given enormous importance in the Quran, establishing standards for evidence in legal matters. Multiple witnesses, written contracts, and proper documentation are required for important transactions, principles that became foundational to modern legal systems. The emphasis on evidence-based justice protected against false accusations and arbitrary rulings. Forgiveness and its psychological benefits are repeatedly emphasized in the Quran. Modern psychology research demonstrates that practicing forgiveness reduces stress, anxiety, depression, and physical health problems. People who forgive show lower blood pressure, improved immune function, and better cardiovascular health. Holding grudges literally damages health, making forgiveness both spiritual practice and medical prescription. The Quran describes how nations and civilizations rise and fall according to natural laws. Societies that become corrupt or unjust eventually collapse. Historical analysis confirms this pattern. Empires decline when governance weakens, inequality grows, moral cohesion erodes, and economic systems become exploitative. From Rome to the Mayans to modern powers, the cycle of rise and decline follows predictable patterns aligned with Quranic warnings. Prayer's psychological and physiological benefits are implied throughout the Quran. Research demonstrates that regular prayer and meditation reduce stress hormones, lower blood pressure, improve emotional regulation, enhance cognitive function, and increase gray matter density in brain regions associated with attention and emotional processing. The prescribed 5 daily prayers create a rhythm that optimizes these benefits. The Quran mentions that those who reject truth will be given respite, allowed to continue in their ways, which seems counterintuitive as divine strategy. However, psychology reveals that forcing belief change through coercion typically strengthens resistance through psychological reactance. People change beliefs most effectively through voluntary reflection, personal experience, and gradual realization, precisely what divine respite allows. Family bonds and kinship are given special status in the Quran, with maintaining family ties considered a major virtue. Social science research demonstrates that strong family connections correlate with better mental health, longer life expectancy, increased happiness, better child outcomes, and greater economic stability. Societies with strong kinship networks show higher social capital and community resilience. The Quran describes how gradual revelation was necessary rather than delivering everything at once. Educational psychology confirms that spaced repetition and gradual learning produce better long-term retention than cramming information. Complex behavioral and conceptual changes require time for integration, making the 23-year revelation period pedagogically optimal for establishing lasting transformation. These 100 secrets represent just the surface of an ocean of knowledge contained within the Quran. From mathematical codes that required computers to discover, to scientific facts that anticipated modern physics by centuries, to psychological insights validated by contemporary research, The text continues revealing layers of meaning that scholars have barely begun to explore. Whether you approach it as divine revelation or historical artifact, the Quran's consistency, precision, and depth across multiple domains of knowledge demand serious investigation. These patterns and predictions weren't randomly stumbled upon, but embedded deliberately within a text that has remained unchanged for 14 centuries, read by billions, memorized by millions, and studied by scholars who continue finding new discoveries within its verses. The invitation stands open. Examine these claims, investigate the evidence, and draw your own conclusions. Truth fears no investigation, and genuine seekers will find answers if they search with sincerity. Whether these secrets convince you of divine authorship or simply showcase an extraordinary historical document, they undeniably demonstrate that the Quran contains knowledge that transcends its 7th century origin, offering wisdom relevant to every age, including our modern scientific era, where facts once thought impossible are now observable reality.